Yeah, check. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chillin' like they ain't know it was written. Wanna free my people from mental prisons. The eyes on the sparrow, I know who narrow divisions. Hope is the boat that keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Destined for change, actions to back up your spoken name. When they throw dirt on us, we use it to play the game. When it rains, we go greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the tide should rise, we'll ride it forever. Why? We are mighty, we fight for our lives, cause we're dying to live. Future is ours, the timing is now. Black and we proud, we saying it loud, we gave it a roar. There's so much more to give, we breaking down all the walls. These times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause, trying to put our life on pause, cause we move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's smoking, our spirits remain unbroken. The divine man says you can't count us out, we are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Style and brilliance of mind, heart as bright as sunshine. Warrior spirits alive, so no we won't be denied. So vibration is high, so
blessings. Brother Kilfani, that's our Dr. Kilfani. Thank you for joining and tuning in. Doing a Monday night.
Excuse me.
Even though they've been tough, just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise
Come on, family.
Yeah. You know what it is? Peace and blessings, family. It's a Monday evening, so you already know what that means. It's Soundbytes International Radio, Black Conscious Acclaim. Absolutely bring the conversations pertinent to our diasporic landscape to you, and you, the family over globally, to strengthen and empower our people the world over. I'm Hasir Khan Neferah, and this is
Neferah to my Auntie Ra.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So please tune in, family. Join the conversation. Share the broadcast. Definitely sharing the broadcast, sharing the conversation today. We're going to be talking about, various things. You know how we do with the sound bites. We want to touch on the various topics and really, be with our family, have the conversations around it, build it out, and see how we can fortify, peel back the layers of this systemic state that we're in, right? And get back to our true selves, our true identity, our true nature, our true being. Yes. So, of course, first things first. If you're watching us, you're on our platforms. We're all live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we're live in your face on Facebook. So if you're just watching, if you haven't liked this as of yet, please like our page for Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio. Please like and follow. Those are two different things. Both are important to the algorithms. So please like and follow us on Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, we're live on Periscope, on Twitter via Periscope. At Soundbytes INTL, so you can follow us there as well. And also, of course, again, we are live on our YouTube channel at Soundbytes International Radio on YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. Share with your friends to hit the subscribe button as well. We want to get those subscribers up, get those numbers up. You know, it's a numbers game out here, family. The more people we're in front of, the more faces we're in front of, the further the message goes, and the greater the impact is of these conversations. Because
the impact is the point.
Impact is key. And as you see, of course, scrolling across the bottom, we do have you can visit our website at thisissoundbytes.com, where you can look at our, check out our merch, provide your energy yields and contributions. All contributions, all sizes and shapes are greatly appreciated to support the sustainability of our the Soundbytes operation as an independently owned, Black-owned brand. So there's an opportunity to contribute on that page, either through the contribute button, or you can buy some merch and get yourself something as a token.
Come on, fortify.
And also you can follow our on that page. You can follow our podcast, the podcast version of these episodes on Apple. Spotify, on
Apple Podcast,
Apple Podcast, and Spotify. We are streaming. We have our podcast open, so streaming past 3 years of Soundbytes content for you to take with you wherever you go, listen over and over again. Please make sure to hit the ratings, the 5-star ratings. Also, leave your reviews on Apple Podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. It matters. All these things matter to the Matrix. And as far as us, maneuvering through here to share our message with the tools we have in our hands. So we make and do, family. It's what it is. But we need your support. So we do appreciate you for doing so. First, I want to give a big shout out to our good brother Eric, who is celebrating his born day today. Born day blessing, born day shouts out from your Soundbytes family to you.
Hardcore supporter.
Absolutely, a hardcore supporter who's always out there. One of our soldiers on the front line. One of our sharing the information, sharing the broadcast, sharing his education as well. And helping to build out the African family. So we appreciate you, brother. Appreciate your support. We hope you have a safe and blessed day. We hope you enjoy yourself. I know you're working hard, so I know you took your time off. So I hope you're enjoying yourself and taking some time for you, African. We love you. We appreciate you, brother. So hope you're enjoying your day.
Yes.
So if you see the brother in the streets, shout him out.
Shout out that brother. Arik, let him know.
In these social streets. So yeah, it's Monday. There's quite a few things to talk about, and we really want to touch on how we're having these conversations as Africans, who's having authentic African conversations, and a couple other things that we've seen through the ether over the past week. Bless you.
Excuse me. Stand there back.
The sinuses rear their ugly heads.
Okay.
So we cover you with healing and clear nasal passages.
Good thing.
And there's definitely one of those things we want to look at is like who's having an authentic African conversation, family, and what does that even mean, right? And if you follow the Soundbytes brand for as long as we've been on, we would hope you get the gist of what we mean when we say an African conversation. Really, a conversation around is what you're saying, is what your energy you're putting out into the world, is energy you're taking in, and compartmentalizing and really fortifying yourself with. True to your identity as an African in this U.S. soil, African in the global landscape, meaning in African-centered values and spiritual values, in brotherhood and sisterhood and family and building of nation, in rejection or building rejection away from all the programming that the Matrix has placed on and indoctrination the Matrix has placed on our community for centuries. In standing a committed effort to break those molds, break those chains.
And what does that really look like?
What does that look like? What does that look like for us? So there's varying levels of how we're dealing with these ideas. We say consciousness, we say woke, we say all those things, but what does it really mean? And do they really contribute? What does it look like in application? Right?
Family.
So what does that look like? So let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know your thoughts around that. And even what does that mean that you have African conversation, right? In your understanding, as an African person on U.S. soil.
Some people not even African. So I mean, where are we with that? Like we've been going through this whole conversation of the African identity. So we really want to know, where are we with that? Where are we with that conversation of African? We have a lot of people with a lot of conversations to see. This is why I make a very strong intention around. We learn, we do this learning, we do the academic formatting of getting this information. But then once we get all this information, what do we do with it? Because in my experience, I've noticed a lot of people just collect a lot of information. They just hoard it. They hoard it or they put it on as some sort of badge of honor. But the intention around why do you have this information and what do you intend to do with it? How is it showing up in your life? Because we also have a lot of, we have cultivated our society, and I can attest to this, where people believe that you can talk split. You can say one thing and you can completely do another. We got a lot of Christian folks that go to church and hallelujah, praise the Lord. The people who have done me the dirtiest have been the most sanctified Christians. I'm here to tell you. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
Okay, for some reason, we believe that we can compartmentalize our intention and our connection to the divine to only a particular day, and we can do whatever we want to do in the rest of our lives, with the rest of our lives. But this is also bad behavior that we've learned from the Matrix. So that also spills into this conversation of, okay, so we're moving into sovereignty for the African because that's our intention, is to move into sovereignty, self-efficacy, and be able to self-govern without intrusion, right? Because right now we don't have sovereignty of our own minds and bodies. Just so we can really get clear.
Core,
we need to really get clear. So what your position in this matrix really is, African. We actually don't have full sovereignty of our minds, bodies, and context as an individual, much less as a community of people. So we got a lot of doing to do, and it's going to be very important that people, when you decide to be on this journey, that you literally put your life and your rhetoric has to be consistent. And above all that, your energy must also be consistent. Because I've been treated the nastiest by some of the most woke people I've ever experienced. All they're concerned with is you buying my stuff. Buy my stuff here. And that's it.
And it's not real. It's like,
it's just not real. And it's unfortunate because this is impacting people coming into the space.
I actually want to share. I don't mean to cut your course.
No worries.
I want to share just an example of and it's an example of many that I've seen. And this is why people tend to have a problem, especially Black folks that say they want to step into the pool of consciousness, have a problem dealing with the quote unquote conscious folks that give them this kind of belligerent energy. And I want to share this quick thing. So for instance, there's a group I'm in. I don't know if you're in it, but there's a group I'm in around kind of like Black economics, like trying to support Black owned businesses or what have you. And a brother was sharing about, he made a boot rather that's supposed to rival Timberland, and he made this kind of comparison, this graphic comparison of his boots versus Timberland, is had kind of like African inspired prints across the boot. It's a nice looking boot, right? But the essentially the core, of course, is like, hey, I made a fashion boot by my boot, right? But the comparison that was being made was to Timberland, which essentially at base level, Timberland is a work boot, right? Timberland did have a core function in this creation as a type of boot. So it's made a particular type of way for a particular type of reason. Now, the hood did, essentially co-opt it as a fashion boot, where then you got different colors and different colorways that it looks, what have you, and it became a staple. Right, this is what we do, right? We stylize it, became a staple of hood footwear, right? But at its core, it's still a work boot, right? And very much, if you a lot of Africans, if as far as work is concerned, we tend to end up being subject to just manual labor, so construction and things like that, or various forms of construction as far as work goes on a blue collar level. So which means more often than not, a Timberland boot would be well sufficient, or a similar boot would be sufficient for the type of work, right? So I say this to say, one brother, he made a whole specific kind of breakdown of the practicality of the boot when you're making such a comparison, right? Because you're not made it beyond the fashion, because you're saying a better boot for a better price. But what is a better boot, right? Anyway, so functionally, right? So brother, he broke down all the pieces as someone who's understood the practicality of a work boot and why it matters beyond fashion. And it was thought out, and it was in intention to support him in making such claims. Like, it's a better boot. It may look nice, but is it actually functional to rival this boot? Because then you're actually saying something. And a brother got on there, just for one, had the name Kemet in his name. So it's already kind of put it in a mind of what he was thinking. This wasn't the brother that posted; it was just some other brother that commented on it. And he commented on this brother's post around his breaking down the functionality of the boot. And it was just the most immediately belligerent and ignorant kind of attack on the brother, just because he was looking at the functionality of the boot. He's up, you know, and this whole like, oh, it's a fashion. Why are you talking all this work stuff? You talking nonsense. You talking this, and that. And rather than it being a counter argument, it was really just a obtuse argument for no reason out the gate. And you know, the brother was very cordial around responding to him. Like, look, like I'm trying to actually help him out. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know where all this energy is coming from. And anybody that was coming in contrast, he was just very belligerent, very obtuse. But yeah, on your page, you have this picture of helping Black boys, and you got Kemet in your name, and all this type of stuff and energy that you want to perpetuate. But you're out here off the gate, nowhere near brotherhood, nowhere near family, nowhere near trying to fortify, have a conversation that's empowering and impacting going forward. So how are you actually being supportive? There's a lot of people in that kind of, there's a lot of us that are kind of taking this consciousness thing the wrong way and taking this energy the wrong way. And it's like, you know, you want to talk about strong masculine energy. You want to talk about, you know, what it means to be the man and the African, but like that does not incorporate badgering your fellow people, right? That does not incorporate this angry energy. That's like, that doesn't work.
There's more to it than just the
or feeling holier than thou, or you know,
that's
lording over people, self-righteous to the point where you're like, you know, you're rubbing your folks the wrong way. That doesn't work. That doesn't work to build family.
So part of it is the mental health issue. So that's a part of our topic for today, mental health. We're not clear that because we have been impacted so negatively by our encounters with European consciousness and cultural context, that it has literally made African people crazy. Putting it lightly, and psychiatrists and psychologists do not like to use the word crazy, and that's because of it inside of Eurocentric consciousness. But inside of colloquialism, inside on the streets, when you say somebody is crazy, we immediately know that clearly something is not right with their behavior. So as an African, I'm talking to you as an African, I want you to understand that our behavior is crazy because it's unnatural. It's not something that is what we would consider altogether, right? When I say that African people, we literally gone crazy, and we've gone crazy based on what is the standard? The standard for African behavior, morality, ethics, community, unity, community building, integrity, even Dr. Malema Baruti, my goodness, forgive me for, you know.
Blessings of Barbara.
I'll be trying to, you know, I talk 20,000 words a minute, so sometimes that just gets past me, right? But with all due respect to our elder, he came on last week and he really gave us some fortifying fruit for our moving forward in our what's next for us, and that's for us to fold in. So in his book, Mental Side, he talks about our hollowed out, and you really want to get a hold of this book, and the reason why you want to have this is because you want to find yourself in it. That's the point. You get the information, you put it on, you do the assessment, you find yourself and your circumstances in the book. Once you do that, now you begin to combat those behaviors. Some of us think we can go get, and see, mental health is an issue, particularly for our African men, because the majority of us as African people were all dealing with worthiness issues. Remember, white-centered, Eurocentric consciousness said we weren't human. So we had no value other than what we could be told to do, no different than the cow. To the point of whatever utility experimented on us, they cut open African women's wombs to create the speculum. Right? They don't need pain meds. And I can tell you to this very day, I've had massages, I've been to the doctor, and I've had people handle me rough. I've even had individuals of other people of color do my hair and handle me harshly, because this is how the context of cultural experience has impacted the very scenes of everyday living. Okay? And this is what whiteness and white-centered consciousness do not want you to. I am talking to you about it. Okay, that impact and that worthiness on Africanness and African bodies, consciousness, and behaviors has seeped into every aspect of the living experience, making African people, by virtue, out of their minds. Okay, so yeah, African men are trying to find self-worth, and they're doing it wherever they can find it, and so are African women. We're all trying to find self-worth and worthiness. So there's a lot of things that we do to create worthiness, including lording over each other. Like, I'm in this work and I swear up and down 1,000 times I can see folks a mile away. I see you. I don't put folks on blast because I don't see the purpose.
See you.
I see you. You're not getting by me. It has been about 12 years since somebody could pull a fast one over. 12 years. I see it all. Every bit of it. So I don't embarrass people because that's not the point. The point is to get us to a place where we can get past this foolishness, past ego, past self-centeredness, past, well, you know, and people, you know, they got their needs. I want this, I want that, whatever the case may be. And I'm in a situation where I got folks shoving stuff in my face, and I'm not dealing with anybody that I don't have a relationship with because I just don't have enough time. So if I don't have a relationship with you, your stuff goes to the back. I don't care what you got to offer.
Right.
I don't, because we're relationship-based people. And if you're talking African-centered consciousness and relationship is not your foundation, you're not in this work. You're just a utility. And I personally, unfortunately, our community and individuals who are sick and who need help and who are looking for answers, they don't know how to compartmentalize the space. And individuals who do know how to maneuver this information are manipulating them. Because, you know, KRS-One was talking on Nick Cannon's show, and he said something about, well, when these individuals get this high level education, you know, because there's nowhere for them to trade these credentials in other than in the matrix, they're going to be limited in how they confront this conversation of African sovereignty. They're going to be limited in how they do. So the individual and the demographic that will engage this conversation are usually individuals in the hood who have been somehow marginalized or mistreated from the matrix. And they also, those same individuals also have a great degree of ghetto behavior and immorality and ratchetiness. So you see, this is why you see these consciousness set wars and all of this stuff. They're not, that's not conscious. That's not African. That's not African.
That's still very much
you tribalism.
Vibrating in the deficiencies of the matrix. So.
And these are individuals who are highly learned, who've been in these spaces for long decades, and they're not engaging the people to bring them up. My professor told me something when I started teaching. He said, don't go down, bring them up.
Yeah, right.
Why would you go down to where they meet people where they are? That's white-centered consciousness. Don't get into colorful white people language. We don't do that in our community. When we see people falling, we don't go down in the dirt with them. We give them an arm and we pull them up. We got to pull our people up. This is why when I see people clarion on, I see them all the time, I don't embarrass them. I have varying ways as a divine designated teacher, right? I have ways of getting to people. That has taken more than 20 years to perfect because I used to fight with folks. I used to send myself into hunger fits for days and days and days and weeks for not eating, throwing up out of my stomach, ulcers. My stomach used to vibrate all the time in stress, tussling with people, trying to get them to hear. Then I learned. I'm a master at it. But see, anything you practice, you get good at. And you can practice, you can master behavior, you can master interacting, because our people are out of their minds. So I'm here to tell you, even when you're going to be fed and to be healthy, we still always have to consistently, remember Baruti says, you must consistently be dealing with those issues and those residues of Eurocentric consciousness, because we literally, for generations, have been raised inside of a consciousness that is not of our own, that does not help us in any way. It wasn't built to. There are contradictory. It's just total contradiction in the greatest good of the African. And, you know, in the book, I just read something last night, and he says, you know, we moved into this space where we have white-centered consciousness, because remember, whiteness became mechanized when whiteness became a thing to lord over other people. And then along with that came cultural behaviors and engagement, et cetera, that went along with that to this very day. And people who are having a white cultural experience, and I tell you, African, if you fight with white people, you're not in this game. Don't fight with white people. Let white people take care of themselves and their own problems, because this is their problem. They created this mess. For you, you're in recovery. You're in your learning curve. Let them deal with it, because they deal with information and they deal with circumstances very different. This is why I say to you, African, deal with your own mind, your African business. Because this mess, they're not going to be motivated to do anything about it until they begin to lose things. That is the matrix. That's how that works, because everything about white-centered consciousness has to do with acquisition and control. The only time they're going to be concerned with doing anything different is if they start to lose things. And the only way for them to lose things is for African people to wake up and start to take care of themselves. Once you take care of yourself, the matrix is going to lose things, because you're going to be making different decisions. You're going to be behaving differently. And by virtue of that, the matrix is going to lose stuff. That's just the fundament. That's just how it was set up. It's not our fault. It's none of our business. We'll work it out. We'll do what we gotta do, right? Period. So voting and all of these things, those are maintenance conversations, African. We'll get into in the advent of 45. In the advent of, the election has been called. You made a post today.
Hmm?
You made a post today.
Oh, about this dumbass.
This is insane, y'all.
This guy's a
We'll move on to something else.
Like I said, yeah, shout outs again, brother. We see you.
Family.
Enjoy yourself, brother. We hit you with the shout out at the top of the show, but we appreciate you, brother. So definitely enjoy yourself. We appreciate you jumping in regardless. And yeah, like this guy, he's a psychopath out here talking about I won the election.
He said he won.
And it wasn't until I had to double check the tweet to make sure it was today. It was definitely today. After it was announced damn near a week ago, bro. Like, get over yourself. What are you doing? I won the election. No, you didn't.
He won the election.
How? In what country? You've been elected to leave. Get your ass
elected
out.
To get out of here.
But this is the thing that's about that. And he said this, right? He said he's not going to go peacefully. He's not going to go silently into the night. And he's out here walking in the disillusionment of his power that he's obtained over the past few years. And now the residuals of it, it's out in the streets. Like this past weekend, and our hearts and our energy and our solidarities with our peoples that may have chose to be on the ground for this, but we feel like this was a space that we didn't need to be in, right? Was that there was a million MAGA march. Check this out, family. So they decide they want to co-opt our symbols of our struggles and our plights and our walks. Anytime that they feel remotely anywhere near the word oppression, because they know what the fuck oppression is. So they decided because they felt the election was rigged with no evidence whatsoever of any rigging, with all true legal votes being counted, still feel that there was something wrong with the election. So they took to the streets.
Yes, they did.
The 45 folks went out to these streets for a million MAGA march. Millions of these folks was out in the streets marching to, I think it was in DC.
Yes,
it was in DC. And they this is not over. This is what the energy is about. This is not over. And they're marching for their guy. They're marching for their guy. And then even within that, later in the night, we had the Proud Boys, like all of the white supremacist groups, just taking to the streets, and the police enacting violence, all working together around just tearing up the place. Right? You got Antifa, they're going back and forth with Antifa, which is like they have their own thing within themselves. Anti-fascist group, yes, but they don't help the cause by being these kind of violent agitators. Like, that doesn't work. Not for us, African. That's not the part of the cause that we're trying to activate. We definitely want to see the system burn, but it has to be strategic for us. It has to be a strategic way
because we don't need that we
attack this. We don't need to just lose.
We don't need any
haphazard following other people's plans. Most of these Antifa folk aren't the Matrix, right? The people that just came out here just yesterday that trying to figure themselves out. Liberal white folks, or whatever the case may be. African, don't fall into that trap. You can stand for what that means, but that stuff doesn't work, because what ends up happening is that now they're fighting with these MAGA folks out in the streets, and then we're the ones getting beat up. There was a few sister Black Lives Matter protester was out there. She was beat up and thrown to the floor. Luckily, she's okay. In the midst of all
this, they arrested the brothers.
And they arrested the black men.
Cut across the white guy who was attacking her.
Exactly. Didn't do anything to the white folks. They arrested the brothers.
The victim. They love to
be
the victim.
They weren't, apparently, from what I heard, they weren't in these spaces with riot gear. But yeah, they can show up in riot gear for our peaceful protest for justice.
For our peaceful protest. And black people do not have a history of wilding out in African on American soil.
Yeah.
We have a couple of opportunities where we had, but rightfully so, because every organism should self-preserve. Yeah. Self-preservation, first rule of nature. And African people have not preserved themselves as much as they actually should have. Mm-hmm. And there are a few instances, but not on a daily basis. Not for white people to walk around with this nervous tick that they have, talking about they're always in fear for their life. You're a cop. You trained for 22 weeks. My training was 8 weeks.
What was the point?
My training was 8 weeks. There's no reason for me to walk around every day at my job with a nervous tick every time I see somebody brown. And see, this came out of white center consciousness. Like I told you, what the subtle nuances that makes this Spanish chick, this Dominican chick, when she's doing my hair, rub my hair like she going out of her mind. This Asian man beating all on my body for a massage.
Listen, that was like the worst massage I got.
I could not believe this guy.
The thing how he beat the fuck. I'm like, bro, like this doesn't even feel good.
This doesn't even feel good.
Like, I actually feel worse than when I came here.
Exactly. I felt like I got beat up. I was like, I felt like I was getting beat up.
You know that there's a psychosis in that around. Like,
yes, about how people handle African people.
Right.
About how the context of this consciousness has woven itself into every facet. And you're not going, I don't need no confirmation in this. I've experienced it enough times to know, and I've done my own personal research, my life the social experiment, because I've been living in this life in awareness of this life. So I'm not looking for white people to validate my assertions.
No.
Okay, an African, stop looking for white people to validate your assertions because they're not. Okay, the same way they handle these folks, they come in this riot gear to peaceful protests when African people, by and large, have allowed these folks to beat them up, shoot them up, fight them, spray them with water, stick dogs on them, run them down, tear gas them.
Decades.
All of these since the 50s, 60s. This is how white-centered consciousness has dealt with African people, journey to self-efficacy peacefully.
And not on any provocation other than existence.
No provocation. We didn't do nothing. Okay, the government rallied up, and all of it's for burning down Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all the cities across the country. Rosewood, right? Taking the land back, right? All of these spaces, bombing the move movement in 1985. Right? All of these things are happening where the aggressor is not African people. Not. So there's no reason for you to walk around in this nervous tick about a fear that you feared for your life, which is a racket, it's garbage, and it is an illusion. And I think black folks, we out of our minds because of our impact of the being inside of this twilight zone white-centered consciousness. White people are truly out of their minds at a whole nother level. I mean, truly out of their minds to a biophysiological level, on top of the psychosis, on top of the terror of the ghosts of Christmas past, which has nothing to do with us. Only thing you need to do is avoid them at all costs and make sure you make it out and get home safely.
Yeah.
There's no reason why there's statistics that says 1 out of 3 African males will have an interaction with police and probably the penal system. They've created business around our sons and daughters and fathers and in community, in prison. All of these things are social symptoms. And what we do, we out here dancing and celebrating after this fool gets elected, after this one here gets elected. We're out of our minds, family. Out of our minds.
Because somewhere in this election, in the moment he was designated as the elected candidate, somewhere in our minds, we forced ourselves, we turned a switch on to let us say, okay, this is the only way to get out of this. This is our hope. For whatever reason.
We didn't need no hope. It was a strategic plan because we slept when he got elected.
There's people that's like, okay, yeah, like we understand.
That's how bad.
We understand this is a way to get to somebody that might have a reasonable thought process. But there's been a lot of like commitment and conviction around having this guy in office and having Kamala in office or whatever. Like this whole
got a black woman that I know.
I'm branded. I got a shirt. I got a mask. I got this. I got flags. I got that. I got woo.
All we looking for is a good time. All we looking for is a place to give out.
You elected him. You won. Good. Move on. Like
whatever.
You've now committed to the excitement and the psychosis around the fact that we've been belabored into this idea that there's only 2 parties that are for us, and they actually have both been destroying us for decades. Right, that there's only 2 power structures that we should be looking into, either or, and they're both evil. Lesser of 2 evils is still evil, and there's lesser of 2 evils, especially when those evils are directed towards you.
Mind your African business.
There's an overt face of hate versus a covert face of hate. Either one is a face of hate. Covert is probably worse because that means it's gonna pat you on the back and really look. They're trying to find a good way to put the knife in. With the good part of the back. I'm gonna get this part of the back right here. That's what I'm gonna stab him. That's what it's about. That's what we're in, right? There is no trust in the system that has failed us consistently failed us by its own design, working to literally fail us and to get us subordinate, to get us to submit to the whim of this system to help it function as cogs in the machine. We're not as functioning people. We are the pieces, the cogs to help the machine move. That no one ever sees, no one cares it is there, but it's supposed to help it move. And that's where we're at. And we have to take back our power and our ownership of who we are as our own separate entity, our own separate identity, our own separate community, our own separate people.
And they don't want to hear you say that. They don't want to hear you say. They don't want to hear you say, "Oh, y'all want to be separate." I had a white woman say some craziness to me, and she didn't realize that she had said something stupid as hell. Oh, black people can be successful in white society.
The fuck you mean?
No. She didn't know. She did not know what she was saying. It was purely innocent. But this is her reality.
But that's what.
Who said this is white society? And what makes this white society?
Right. Even in that. Right.
What makes it normal? First of all, I can look at the greatest indicator of the future is the past. White society has been destructive. It's been madness. I mean, there's white folks running around here. No. Everything is all good for them because life is all good for them. They're not really worried about the runoff from money to this. They're not really worried about life is just the same. Everybody having a good time, grand old time. And it's black folks after 8 minutes and 46 seconds of George Floyd, okay, after Breonna Taylor was killed in her house innocent and the police tried to frame her and all of this is happening in public. If we ain't pissed about that, we out of our minds.
It's one thing.
If we gotta, I can't. I just.
No, I was just gonna say, it's just to add on to it. It's one thing if you're talking about on the days where this stuff was under the sheets, under wraps. You got these cops wearing body cams. You got all the evidence in the world in your face. Like Nefer said, it's public. All of that is laid out on the table, and we still can't get justice. Does that seem right to you? Does that seem like there's any possible way of really looking at getting justice or hope for justice in this particular type of system?
None. But they don't want to
do everything and work around every hook and crook to make sure that you're wrong, despite all evidence that proves the otherwise. This is what we have to deal with. And we want to disillusion ourselves and believe in essentially we're in delusions. That's the psychosis. We're ill in believing that there's still hope within this system of quote unquote what it is saving us or being better. No, it has to be.
You need to take care of yourself.
You either need to separate from it or it has to be destroyed.
You need to take care of yourself
and do a better, diligent job of fighting back. Because it's please stop killing us. Hands up,
Who the hell cares?
It's
not white
breathe.
Society. It's
please
madness.
Don't touch me.
Anytime you find somebody that's crazy, you take them off their. You remove them from the front because they're unfit to lead.
You got to suplex them.
At the end of the day, I personally, because that's the only way that it actually happens, right? The only way the old empire actually falls is if we tear it down. That's just how it happens. I don't personally feel the need to be the one to do that. Let somebody else do that because America is on a short thread. It's on a short thread at this moment. Okay, America's on a short thread. You got these white folks out here talking about Trump's going to save America from getting sold to the Chinese. Did you forget that there was $178 trillion number that was floating around during the wars? This was before Obama. Where did this money come from? America is more Chinese than it is American right now. They just haven't brought they haven't brought the Chinese flags out for your nerves. They're only doing that for your nerves. I'm telling you. Okay, based on our debt, America is more Chinese than it is American. Okay, so it's too late for that conversation. Trump's not doing anything about that. It's too late. He couldn't do anything about it because it was already done before he got in office. They had all of those wars as a result of the whole rigmarole, the whole off the yellow brick road. You remember the story Wizard of Oz, right? When you get off the yellow brick road, you go into all of these winding circumstances and all of this here that happens, and they tell you to stay on the road, stay on the focus, stay focused, right? Now you off the beaten path, and all of these things are happening as a result of 9/11 because all of this is run off from 9/11. All of these wars, all of this killing, all of this invasion has all been run off from the very beginning theatrics of 93 when Father Bush tried to blow up the Twin Towers and was unsuccessful. Then they came back again in 2001 and were successful. This has all been cultivated along the lines of what was intended to be created. But now it got too far and it's out of control at this point.
It is.
It's out of
That's why
control.
it's busting at the seams.
It's busting at the seams, and it's a mess, and
losing their
everything
minds out here.
People are losing their minds. And African, you don't need to lose your mind. You need to get yourself together. You need to step back.
Step back.
You need to step back, disengage, and let these folks handle their own business, because America is going to push the buttons with somebody, and somebody going to come. You know the bigger bully? You know the one that comes, you knock out the bigger bully, and then everybody else step back? David is riling up, and David is going to bust Goliath, and that's just how that's going to happen. But remember something, America's not really Goliath. That's only an illusion. It really isn't. Okay, because there's actually some bosses out here that can tussle with America. And African, you need to step aside from that, because that's none of your business. You don't have anything to do with any of these policies. You don't have anything to do with this government that's going on. You don't have any, you're not a part of any of these things. You're just lucky to be here. You're just so happy to get on board and maybe get your little $2 and whatever, and just get your come up so you can go be, so you can get some worthiness better than those other Africans over there.
Somebody
you got to get another psychosis.
Exactly. Someone told you that was the come up.
Another psychosis, because you can get your little come up in them. Because like I said, most folks ain't out here is not looking for a revolution. They're looking for a better seat in the masses' house, because you're only concerned about yourself. See, when whiteness created this America, they created this America for 10 generations. They prospected forward 50, 60, 100, 200 years in the future. Most African people can't even consider time longer than the next 2 weeks. Paycheck. We don't even look at time in terms of 1,000 years.
Trying to get to tomorrow.
Like, it's crazy the way we think. And we have been formulated inside of this bubble. And it's going to be for us to take the information. We combat ignorance with intelligence. We take the information, and we then take that information and we then put it inside of our consciousness, and we take it off like this, and we put strips on it, strips, because this thing is oozing because it's healing. Once you put that intelligence on top of that foolishness, it's going to ooze. And I don't know how it's going to look for you. For some people, it looks really bad.
A little funky.
It's really bad, and it's putrid. I'm telling you. And you got to put that on top. Then you have to make intelligent decisions moving forward as to what you're going to do with your life, the decisions, your energy moving forward. I have a big problem with some of these conscious and intellectual community individuals not really giving these individuals who are willing to entertain this information, because you know these graduated and college educated and doctoral people, they get real accommodating.
Yeah,
they just become very accommodating, because that's just how that goes. They lose their buzz, and they just start getting very accommodated. Mm-hmm. So the people who are willing to go for broke and go in hard are usually not the individuals that are in the matrix to that degree. But you're also not telling them how to apply this information for strategy. And they're bringing their ratchetiness to the conscious community, or to the place of enlightenment or sovereignty. We can't have it. We still can't have ratchety, who still has a lack of ability to engage each other, still out here dog eat dog, still using each other, still out here I got conscious brothers throwing around here objectifying Black women under the guise of let's change the standard of beauty. Just because white-centered consciousness had Sarah Bartman and her behind and her body parts and all of these things, and you just turned around and said, oh, a Black woman's butt is whatever, and she's got a beautiful chocolatey skin and beautiful smile. That's cute, but you're borderline objectifying the African woman, still relegating her to her body parts.
I see like a bunch of like
that's just madness
in these Black artist groups. I see like more often than not, it's like this idea like the brothers make these paintings of Black women butt ass naked.
Like they think that you're saying something. You're not saying nothing. Put a sun
over her and put in gold foil.
You're not saying nothing.
With them like all your paintings like that. Cool. Is she gonna wear clothes anytime soon?
Never.
Is she gonna actually show her face? Because we see her butt.
Because really well. Who is she?
So
like you literally objectified the woman, and you still made her an object for somebody else's pleasure. She's still not a whole person with contributions to make. Remember, an African woman was not necessarily second class unless inside of white-centered consciousness. Mm-hmm. That's where white-centered consciousness, patriarchy, decided to place women. In African-centered context, that's not where they were. African women were warriors. They hunted, they cooked, they built, they did everything that they needed to do because they were a part of a whole. There were different pockets, you know, the healer, the mothers, the nurturer, or what have you. But there's also tribes in Africa where the men take care of the children because the women are better hunters.
Right. So
functionally, we do what we need to do functionally. What's going to get us the biggest benefit?
Yeah.
So if the women and being more agile or more small or body size or more small, you know, have to be able to climb or what have you, if that makes it functionally necessary for the woman to do that duty, then she does.
The lioness is the one that does the hunting.
Yeah, okay, in nature. So you better get your mind right and get outside of the male ego and the bravado and the mattering. It's really about the mattering because, you know, the black man just gets all the shit. He's the lowest and the most disrespected. He's out of here. Like, nobody gives a damn about him. They just throw our black men. They decide that our black men's destiny was prison. They created a whole system, federally traded, et cetera, and they decided to designate African men to the prison system. So I understand why they need a mattering conversation, because I was talking about recently inside of this dating conversation and husbands and all of this stuff and with these black women. And you want to know where your husband's at. This is where your husbands are. This is where your husbands are. Juwanza Kunjufu said conspiracy to destroy black boys. So even your mind is not even functioning properly, that you as a mother are also breaking these sons as they grow up, and then the system gets them. They go to school and the school breaks them, and then the matrix breaks them, and now they're mad and they're angry, and the only other place that they're going to end up is either in jail or dead. Because they don't know how to communicate properly. They're poor readers, right? Many black men don't really read books to this very day. Reading is not an activity for black men, unfortunately. Not most of them. The great majority of them, they're into other things. And they have a lot of entertainment for black men. Sports, music, fashion,
video games,
bravado, you know, my sexy, my clothes, my hair, my muscles, right? That's how they getting down. My car, my job, that's how they getting down. They're not into intellectual. They're not into bigging up their brains. And for those that do big up their brains, they then become a different kind of arrogant and disgusting.
And that's the thing, is like, where do we find a fine line in this? Exactly. Where do we find a fine line in that spectrum? It's either you're not learning enough and all your energy is placed within these trinkets of the system of entertainment and is keeping the mind stimulated and kind of subdued over here, or you're over here in the books and you've translated this knowledge into a means to lord over people or to be arrogant or to be pompous about it. It's like there has to be a medium where all of that gets to function in the space as pieces of who you are as an African man, and you can still stand strong, stand in brotherhood, stand in being loving, being protective, being all these things in a way that's not diminishing to your people, to your community. Because then you're still doing that, and there's
still become the oppressor.
Exactly, and in part in that for those that do that, it ends up being this thing where now you're in a competition for power dynamics with white men. And whiteness and the white patriarch, who can be the more oppressive. We don't want to accept that that's what the reality of it becomes, but that's what it ends up being. So, okay, I can't necessarily oppress a white man, but I can probably oppress a black woman, or I can oppress my kids, or whatever the case may be, or I can stun on these other cats in the hood. Like you can't.
That's what they all talk about in their rap music. That's the foundation of building pride. I can tell you, you as a musician, you know, because you're making a different type of music, but it's always about, there's a few elements in there, highlighting smoking weed, highlight how many women you sleeping with, highlight how big your bank is, highlight how many your guns got, and these young rappers are getting killed, and all they doing in the music is talk about the same thing. How many guns they got, how they like to blow people up, how they gonna handle their business with folks. Like, we have to have a different conversation, African, because these individuals are people's nephews and sons.
Like bad bitches everywhere and this and that. Like, that doesn't work. Like,
what was happening?
And it's become so much of a normality in the music. We've been so conditioned to have this be the normality, especially in our music, and especially in a genre that's become an actual very powerful genre. People don't want to admit it, but it's global. The global impact of hip hop is insane when you really look at the dynamics of it. But it's all the same topics, and it's to the point where we've been so conditioned. It's about, okay, well, I guess who raps it better then? Like, if I can't get some actual good meaty content to fortify my soul, then let me at least enjoy who's rapping about this bullshit
about the garbage
better.
Best.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, because now, like, I look at forums and comments and young folk, they're like, this is insane. Like, this guy's the GOAT. Really? He literally said in all 20 tracks of his song about bad bitches and toting guns and shooting and this and that. Still, it's 2020. How is it still the conversation for a lot of folks? We've gone past kind of like, you know, not so much the drug dealing per se, but like now we're in a space of like drug using in the music, and still toting guns, shooting up niggas, and all this other BS. that still permeates our children's brains and psyches. You go to sleep with that shit, it's on your mind. Literally a song called Wake Up in the Morning, I Got Murder on My Mind. How?
Lord have mercy.
And the guy is in jail
is
for murder, his friends. All these residuals of what
I made a
the
post
Matrix
recently. I said, I'm the kind of person that make folks
on,
want to get their shit together. I said, but you know, and it has nothing to do with what I say. It has nothing. It's you know, when you come to a point where you master self, you radiate an African. You don't have to say a word. I've come to terms with it. It was difficult to be able to, you know, you're out here radiating an African and nothing you can do about it at this point. I mastered it because initially I was talking about my conversation was healing. My conversation was personal healing. And then I'm like, oh, so this makes sense. Let's do this thing. You know, you get better, you know, you help people, you know, we all come together and kumbaya, everything's going to be wonderful. And then you discover that the healing still doesn't work in application in the Matrix because there's no place for it in the Matrix.
Brother Arik says we need to be critical of ourselves. Absolutely. We refuse to do so. That's to be critical of ourselves means to hold accountability for ourselves, means to say that, oh, we fucked up here, or we did this here. Yeah, I messed up here. And by and large, society is not about accountability for self. Someone is always to blame, even for shit that you do. Someone else is always to blame. That's what just this scarcity minded mentality is created for every human within this system, and particularly for Black folks, has created a scavenger mentality to where it's like I gotta be the better one over these folks, and I can't let them be successful. I can't let them do this. So like now someone else is to blame if I fall, rather than me and doing the things that I'm doing. That I was the one. I'm the source of that issue, of that fall. Once we take accountability, then we can be the source of our rise, and that's the thing that we don't have that conversation.
Sorry to cut you across. Dr. Umar said that too. That Black African people, Black folks don't really want to be responsible for their liberation.
It would cost too much. Which is why they give away. Yeah.
Which is why, and not necessarily the cost, because we spend money. We're $1 trillion spending annually.
But I don't mean just cost.
It's not even about the money.
I don't mean
it's
financial
really about
costs.
the status. It's really about the
cost and varying levels.
The other varying levels of cost in terms of sacrifice, in terms of you got to give away some of your perversions. Yeah. You got to give away some of your decadence. You got to give away some of your, you know, ideologies and behaviors that you've practiced for this long. They walking around a long time. Nobody's perfect. You know, Jesus wasn't even perfect. That's all game. It's not about being perfection. It's about functionality. It's not about perfection. It's about functionality. The behaviors that we have don't function in a way that is supportive of the African greatest good. So if it doesn't support the African's greatest good, it's not functional. It's not about perfection. It's about what works. Dr. Crest Wrestling, give honor to our ancestor. She said, we're the only people on this entire planet who have been taught to sing and praise our demeaning.
Yeah, that's cool, yeah.
I'm a bitch, I'm a hoe, I'm a gangster, I'm a thug, I'm a dog. If you can train people to demean and degrade themselves, you can oppress them forever. You can even program them to kill themselves, and they won't even understand or comprehend how and understand what happened. And she said another one. We do not see the war being waged against us because we don't want to be, and because we are afraid. We are engaging in behavior specifically designed to block out any awareness of the war, and our true reality.
Yeah. Because it's like that's what like how the Matrix operates. If you watch the Matrix,
that's the snake.
It's like you see how the Matrix always looks like this place. It's the city, it's a street you're walking on, what have you. But then you unplug and you see the Matrix is this kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of reality of what it is. There's some stuff that needs to be unpacked with what the reality actually is. There's a war going on, and it is not physically just guns and someone physically attacking you. It's psychological, it's emotional warfare, it's spiritual warfare, and it's happening on a daily basis and in varying levels, and even in things that look like they're positive and gumballs and cherry blossoms. Those are used as the placebo to have you believe and be comforted in your oppression.
Your foolishness.
That doesn't work. We have to be
it's
critical.
all psychology. It's all psychology.
And because there's so much work that's behind doing that, a lot of people don't want to engage in that. It's too much. It's too much to peel back the layers. It's too deep. Yeah, it's deep, and it hurts. It'll hurt. Yeah. The truth will hurt if you're honest with what's been happening. No matter how light you felt your life has been, anything that you've oppressed or repressed or what have you in your life, trust and believe is going to open up some wounds that are pretty real.
It's gonna petrify.
But we depressed and blocked whatever it was, those breaks and belongings that we had in our growth processes as African people, because we've all had it on some particular level. Whether you have one parent, two parents, your whole family, no family, all there's still pieces to it. Because you can have no family and you can have the struggles with that, or you can have all family and they're all by residuals of the matrix are messing with your brain and your psychosis as well. Just so subsidiary actions from the matrix in your home, right? Well, there's so many pieces to it, and because we'd rather repress it in our older age and get our degrees and get our good money and move into a quote unquote nice neighborhood. Exactly, trying to get worthiness in the matrix.
Because if none of those things support the greatest good of the African, it's not functional. Period. It's not functional. If it doesn't get you sovereignty, if it doesn't lead you to unlocking yourself and getting to your greatest ability, it's not functional. It's not perfection. It's functionality and result driven. The result, what is the result that we're trying to create? This is why I don't understand where all of these different varying African type or whatever consciousness type of narratives come from. I don't really get it. And I'm telling you, I've read it front to back. I've studied so much that I've forgotten stuff. It's not even necessary at this point because I've applied the knowledge. Like, have to purge it out, have to drop some stuff. Moved on. An application, that's where it matters. Because a whole lot of people that can quote a whole lot of stuff and they're not vibrating in African. They're not creating a loving environment. They're not holding space for growth and for community and for unity. And the spirit of loving. They're not holding it. They're force feeding and they're jabbing and they're inside of their own psychosis, and it's evident in their behavior and action. And this is what the turnoff is for the community not coming into this space. Because once they come into this African-centered consciousness, I'm telling you, it's a difficult challenge to hold it in integrity. The matrix does not make space for it. Where are we going to absorb them at? Where are we going to take them? What are we going to do with it? Once you get into that space, what's next? The matrix doesn't make room for it. African people against it. People on the other side of the fence, people of color, they're against it because people of color, the great majority of them are definitely trying to find them a better seat in the masses' house. They're happy to know that they're not as bad off as Africans. They're not as bad off as Black people. So they got a better leg up, and they were literally given position of that. Africans in America, you're the lowest rung.
Yeah, at least I'm not Black. That's what
at least I ain't Black.
Conversation.
At least I ain't Black. They might be African off the diaspora.
And they will hang.
But they don't care.
They will hang with you. They will have drinks with you. They'll go to the
game
with you.
They will take everything that you got.
They'll make music with you. They'll party with you.
Yes, they will.
But when they get home, they'll be like, "Woof, man, that stuff is crazy out there." And the police
and they're not really helpful. They're not helpful.
Black. I'm glad I don't look Black.
They're not helpful.
Glad, whatever that looks like.
They're just willing to share space with you, but they really can't contribute to anything that you're doing.
But they take everything to create.
They'll siphon off. And they love this culture. All they want to do is get a little better seat for themselves in the masses' house. That's all they're concerned with, because they don't understand a greater consciousness of what's next in the matrix. Dr. Umar said it. There's no third world nations. There's oppressed nations and oppressor nations. So some of these people of color that are all from the African diaspora are Africans, yet they don't accept their African-centeredness. They want to be a part of the matrix, so they lean into their connection to their oppressor, because that's really what happened. Like there's Africans from Brazil, and they lean into their Portuguese, they lean into their Spaniard, right? There's Africans all over the country, all over the world, and we lean and identify more with our oppressor as some form of token to try to see, can we get a better seat in the masses' house? This is the psychosis. This is what says Africans we ride our minds. All of this, we doing all of this tap dancing against leading into our sovereignty, because that's what the Chinese did. That's what the Japanese did after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay? That's what every other community of people does after they take a hit. They start to recover. And they find a system for their own recovery.
So they
I don't need to deal with anybody asking me, what about separation? I don't want you having, if you're in my face asking me that, you need to go back and read Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility. Because African people are supposed to take care of themselves. Every organism has a right to self-preservation. And if separation, because part of our problem It's our convoluted mix and match, unfortunate situation where you're so deep in a labyrinth that you can't find yourself. You might need to disengage, disembark, retreat, and go get yourself together.
Yeah.
You just might. That might be the viable strategy for your well-being and for your self-preservation. And for African people that are not saying that, I don't understand where they're coming from. Because we really need to disembark. We really need to just disengage and move aside and get our situation together, because we can't even find our minds. Most of us are so out of our minds. If we're not trapped in a religion, some sort of religion, if we're not trapped in some sort of political position, if we're not trapped in some sort of superficial context of, illusion of inclusion, some set somewhere, we are insane. And that's not helpful for creating sovereignty. This is why I said the African, whatever maintenance conversation you're having is temporary. It's a maintenance conversation, but you need to sharpen your mind. Professor Small says the African in America is the most sophisticated African on the planet. Simply because we have a sense of consciousness, even above other people, other Africans above in other places. And that can be an asset for us as a collective. That attribute is an asset to the collective. Because there are some of us who are still so deep in the labyrinth that they're looking to fall to the feet of the Jesus, which is a problem, the savior complex, and looking to someone else. African people coming off of the fringes of slavery, Africans who were stolen and brought and forced to become slaves, have a certain type of endurance. There's a certain thread of intention inside of that creation of our being to this day for those Africans who are here on this soil. And even for those who refuse to acknowledge it because they're terrified and they're scared to death. And that's another conversation. When you betray yourself and soul, that's a whole other type of psychosis that is not even in the DSM. There's a DSM where you hollow yourself out and you accept being poured in, disassociative. You are no longer grounded, right? You become somebody else for survival. But then there's not even a DSM classification for the African who out of terror knows the truth, yet refuses to accept the truth because he or she knows that he's a coward.
That's another thing.
And that's a whole nother mental health conversation right there.
Oh boy.
That's a whole other setup for your children's children.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amos Wilson said, whatever you do should benefit three generations forward.
Yeah.
So any decision you make today, if it's not going to impact 3 generations forward, it's not functional. Go and come again. Functionality is the point, African, not perfection. That was white seduction. That was a whispering snake that played you. It's not about perfection. It's about functionality for you. What's going to get you where you need to get to?
Yeah.
Let's say we need to be critical of our. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, join the conversation, family. Share the link. We're talking about the various aspects of how we're dealing with this conversation of authentic African conversations, how we're dealing with our experience. As always, this is a constant conversation we're in. Because it needs to be had, and people aren't still having it 100% in totality. That's why we say authentic conversation, because it's not enough to just talk about it. It's not enough to just talk a good game or talk African as it sounds good and it'll get you cool points, whatever the case may be. It'll get your tweets up. It'll get your verified badge or anything like that. No, you want to talk African and be an application of it daily. To reiterate what Neff was talking about earlier, it's just really like we want to constantly be in application and constantly be in questions of what's next, what else, what's happened, how do we change this? And our youth are inquisitive about it. We have to be with them with that. A lot of our youth are inquisitive about it. There are a lot of youth that have been successfully indoctrinated by the system to where they believe Africa is this thing, like it was slavery was a godsend. There's even elders that believe that. So if you have that case where elders are believing this, then how can you truly expect many of the youth to have a different type of conversation?
Yeah, but that's
by virtue there, by virtue of who's before her, those who come after will only have them as a basis of learning. So if we're not having our past being properly fortified into the future, then we can't expect to see real growth going forward, generations forward. So we have to be really cognizant of what was taking place, and what ideologies and what narratives that are not our own are told of us, that we accept and subscribe to constantly at every turn, everywhere you see it, from the movies to the papers to how you're when you shop for a home or all these different places. We don't own things. We don't own land, and not in the ways of the past. We don't own this land. So this conversation around, I can't leave, I can't separate because my ancestors built this and this and that. But yeah, but you don't own nothing now. You didn't try to do anything to do
Sure
that.
don't.
You know, if your grandparents owned a house, you sold it. You know,
or they took it because they did a whole bunch of these little municipalities did a whole lot of finagling over the past 150 years.
We used to come to that power structure versus
but then there was nobody to fight. Who are you gonna fight with? Who are you gonna fight with? You know, these folks, and then, you know, African people were in some of these places and spaces, and they were outnumbered. You know, and then you need to have a group of people. You need to have a system of security. I tell you, African, you got to fortify. Anything you build, you will not be able to maintain if you do not fortify. In order for you to fortify anything on this American soil where you will be able to keep it without being touched, there's books on the laws that will not allow you to do that. So then where does that put you? In a vulnerable situation. And that has you shuffling papers and wasting time with people who are here telling you to do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's a maintenance conversation. It's a temporary conversation. You stick and move. You get what you need to get and you move on.
Go.
And you plan. And I'm talking to a sister. We'll have her on the show. We're actually going to have, we're going to get our visitor back. Chief Fode is going to come back from Sierra Leone. And he's going to bring his wife, Malinga Masare, and they're going to come on Wednesday on African and Business segment. And we're going to talk a little bit about the movement to leave this country. That's my only repatriation. That's repatriation. That's my conversation.
Sign us up.
I don't feel the need to waste time. And I'm saying a decision you make needs to benefit the next 3 generations. So the next generations need to know that the gamut of research and possibilities have been engaged, and the discovery was disembark. And it needs to be a real strong line in the sand where it's understood 3-4 generations from now to then begin to create the suspicion. Because African people are too comfortable with smiling faces.
Yeah,
we've gotten too comfortable with that.
That makes me feel better if this person smiles.
It's not good, but this is the same person that's tripping you. This is the same person that has a mutual fund that is invested in prisons that house your sons and daughters. I'm just saying. No, because you got to put your money where your mouth is. I'm not engaged in anything you have to say. In this moment, I'm concerned with the fact that you're buying clothes that are created in sweatshops, where you have children in 10 years, 12 years old, because this country is built on free stuff. Stealing free and cheap is as cheap as possible. So it took jobs from America, took them into other countries, into oppressed nations, and gave them some, this is the politics. You got to have a bigger conversation than your block. You got to have a bigger conversation than your church and your community clubs and all that. You got to have a bigger conversation. African, we need to make decisions that impact us 3 generations from now. If you buying something today is not going to benefit fortifying you so you can be an asset to 3 generations forward, that's simple. And that's going to require every single day of making an attention. And also being able to look out there and resist temptation. Because it's going to always be doing this. It's going to be your mother. It's going to be your sons. It's going to be your cousins. It's going to be your family, your friends, your best friend. It's going to probably be the guy you like, you want to get with. They're going to be doing this to you. They're going to be doing that to you. That's how diabolical the Matrix is. Because it creates those spaces. And then people don't want to deal with the journey of sometimes walking in that wilderness. Yeah, you might do that alone sometimes. People don't want to deal with that. Worthiness, right? Cutting corners. Oh, I can slither a little bit off here because, I don't have to do that much. It's okay. And, we can't. That's the society we living in. We no longer can criticize and self-criticize. We just got to accept everybody for the foolishness that they create. That's what we got to do. That's what we're forced to do now. We can't self-assess And even if you do a self-assessment on yourself, the matrix is going to give you an excuse to not self-assess.
At this point, like even sticking with what's going on is like trying to save a piece of wood in the floor of a burning house.
Okay.
You might as well just like
let it go.
Just let it go. You know, let it go. Let it all go. And focus on a plan to create something for going forward. What's next?
What's next?
We can't be even concerned with what's in the present state. We can use the present state as a framework of what we need to do to avoid it ever happening again. This should be a learning experience. 2020 being kind of this like new era civil rights movement, like 50, 60 years like later, we should not be doing this. It's no excuse. There's no excuse that we should be having the same fight that our grandparents and great-grandparents had. At some point, there should have been a break to where we actually are in a space of equity or power and make some progress.
Why we didn't make some progress, y'all?
If not having our own particular states or true power, then at least like owning some land, and having.
Well, they got 19 Africans that just bought up some land. Everybody's like,
yeah, but then now it's going to be on TV, and then they're going to be exploited, and that's going to be taken from them. I don't believe they're not going to keep that land. That's the reality of it. Is they're not going to keep that land. Once it became this public thing, it would have been best. It would have been best if they never said anything. And it's a challenge, right? Because it's like, how else will we know that it exists?
No, it's not for them. It's not for us.
Right.
That's code for white consciousness. So these folks is doing something over here.
Exactly.
Because here it is, the MAGA, the Proud Boys, those folks represent less than a certain minute percentage of white-centered consciousness. That fundamental space is actually a card, the 3-card Monty. They're being played against us. Because for white-centered consciousness, they treat them the same way they treat us. The round table treats those people the exact same way. Their median income is less than $41,000. They're in rural communities and their only thing is a factory or a prison. Some of them are small businesses because, you know, they got some agricultural because they got this land. They got these grants up front. They got farms or what have you. Right, you need to understand the whole matrix, the whole concept of what's actually happening. And
even the face of agriculture, when you look at farmers, the matrix is painted a picture of the farmer as mostly like an old elderly white folk or white folk. When the farmers actually the ones that actually steward the land that helped build what this country is and actually move about the global landscape of agriculture are people of color, are indigenous people, are black people within this country. Within slavery in itself was agricultural, tilling the land and growing in the soil. But it was acts of resistance. It was act of resistance and sovereignty and power. And that's something else that we get into as well. Not even just owning the land, but how do we use that land to build sovereignty, to build growth, to build protection, to build our own liberation right at home. We need to capitalize on these particular opportunities. The thing that we're dealing with is that we're seeing these things and we're not doing anything about it. We're seeing these opportunities and we're not doing anything about it. Yeah, okay, we can, and I feel like it's like this. Like we can get upset, right, around these power structures, but when there's opportunity, or how do we leverage when money is in the space? If we're going to deal with this capitalist society, how do we leverage this for our advantage to bring back home? The Africans or anybody that's over internationally, they'll come here and create a business or create economic growth for themselves to bring that money back home to support their family. So how do we do that for ourselves? How do we leverage what's in this matrix to make things happen for ourselves?
It's maintenance.
Even on a very micro level, Soundbytes here is leveraging what we have available in this matrix by who's created or who's owned it, whatever, to put forth our message. How long is this message to be put forth? Who knows? Depending on how big it gets. We want to get big anyway. And we do what we do with it. But in the meantime, we're using the tools that we have available to us within the matrix until we have more Black-owned space, until we have more Black-owned webcam companies and Black-owned hardware, internet platforms, and computer hardware and streaming services and lighting equipment and all those things. Like we need more of those in the space, not just one place in one place in one town in one state in an entire country that has trouble shipping. Or it might get intercepted. This is what we have to deal with. So how do we use what we have in our hand and then invest in that, flip that, and build that sustainability for ourselves? We don't see it. We just accept it as what it is and keep it moving rather than how can we maximize what's in our hand right now? we
here we go.
It won't serve us. What do you got?
And I wanted to read a little section over here. It says, and this chapter in the Menticide book is called High Treason. And you need to understand the concept of high treason, which is what I had run into for a long time. And I talk about it online all the time. And when I speak about it, people, I guess they assume that something is wrong with me. I guess they feel like I'm having a sad conversation with them. They don't realize, listen, if I call you out, I'm calling you for it. So I'm going to speak on it because it's a necessity to speak on it. And this is what it means to here. It goes, it is nothing new from that some who claim to be African, who claim to speak uncompromisingly of the African way, are the guilty of faithfully worshiping Europeans, whether overtly or openly trafficking chaos throughout our community. They have caused many of us to seriously question the nature of their contributions to our nation building. So we got to look at the people who we get our information to, because we're all skinfolk and kinfolk.
Right.
And then there's also a section that I was trying to find. I couldn't skim fast enough to find it. But in that same section of high treason is lying. And being withholding is also considered lying for African moral concepts. For African moral concepts, withholding is the same as lying and being deceptive.
Right.
A manipulation.
Because the truth could have saved the situation.
Exactly.
You didn't share it. You're essentially lying.
And it's considered high treasonous to lie because of our oral tradition and word being a power of creation. And a lot of our traditional religion and spirituality, we use word and sound to invoke power. So to use your words to tell lies is considered high treason in African-centered consciousness. So when I call you out, I call you for it. There's a reason for that. And like I said, I don't front people, and I don't stretch them out often. They learn, and I could.
Because we could.
If we told us,
with a lot of folks.
There's a meme that says, I'm saving a whole lot of people's reputation by not telling my side of the story.
Trust and believe in that family.
And the reason being is because I'm not here to gloat.
Right.
It doesn't serve me anything to gloat on your embarrassment. Right. It doesn't.
That's not helpful.
That's not going to help you. It's not going to help me. And it's not going to help the people. But the goal here is for you to change your behavior. We're going to still do it in grace and love. But I'm still going to deal with you the way that I know to deal with you, that is on par with African consciousness, morality, and ethics.
And it brings me peace.
And it brings me peace for self-preservation.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times I just let people rock out just because whatever madness that they're creating for themselves is their own misery, and wish them well and hope that they get free from it. And also hope that the people cutting across them, because that's really where I end up invoking my energy. I invoke my energy because I know the ripple effect. I know that people's misery amplifies. Energy amplifies. I create a certain energy. Hesed creates a certain energy when we walk into spaces, when we are in the presence, other people are in our presence. Energy is created. There's no hairdo, there's no rhetoric, there's nothing you can do to duplicate my frequency or Hesed's frequency. Everyone has a divine designation of their own, and it is for you to sharpen, clear, clean, amplify anything you practice, you get good at. That's for you to do. And until you do, trying to put on other people, it's not going to be helpful to you. It is wasting time. It's what I call shuffling papers. You might as well just bite the bullet and go on and do what you got to do and get through. I pray your strength because the journey is tumultuous. But you can make it through. I know I made it through. And I'm sourcing you endurance, and I'm sourcing you power. I know the power of the African. I can call you forward because I can. Because I know you can make it through. It's not that difficult. This is not that much. It seemed like a lot, but it really isn't. When you get on the other side, you be like, whoa. And it's clear that we work through that energy because we no longer have it from back then. Like people literally be thinking they can pull a fast one because they think I'm green. Because the energy is so clean that they think that I clearly just got here yesterday. I must be some okie doke. You got me twisted, bro. I don't hold it heavy.
There was a good amount of time in my 20s where I literally played aloof on purpose just to see how people show up.
Behave.
I'm like, yo, this is wild.
This is wild.
I'm like watching my mom. I'm like, this is wild.
Then
this
we
is
gotta
what
stop
you're really
that.
doing it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But like, you know,
but you draw the line in the sand. At
draw
some
the line
point.
in the sand for what you want out of your relationships with people and your fellow Africans, because it's really real. Like, you know, we have to do that. Brother Reek says, can we talk about that applying to the Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation? Not just them, but them as well, because they spit the closest thing to actual factors group. I mean, I'm not applying what you're saying about applying to the 5% nation. Are you saying applying like being part of the nation, or are you saying just like in general? I may have missed the point where you made that comment. So I apologize, brother. But
where are you? What is that relative to? Applying it to? Well, I think he was talking about the whole concept of people who are that I read in terms of people who are holding the consciousness. Either they're holding the consciousness and they're not necessarily living up to it. You're a couple of seconds delayed behind us, brother. So when you get a chance to bring us up to speed on that comment, we definitely willing to address it. But
absolutely,
what I don't do is, even for Christianity, I was a Christian, so I speak of Christianity. I also was in the Nation of Islam for a while, and I also lived in an Israelite community for several years.
Oh, okay,
and that's a journey. Okay, yeah, that's a journey of it's a journey of exploration, because we're looking for answers. So when we're in this space, a lot of us go through it. We go through these various spaces, and we're looking for answers. And then by the time I got to become a Buddhist, I also understood Buddhism and the concepts of Buddhism in its African centered, right? So once you start knowing all of these things, you know all of these landscapes, and then you go through Stolen Legacy, and you go through Black Studies, and you go through
the library is real here.
The library is real here. Don't fool around. It's not even that. It's not even that. You go through you get to Dr. Rhinoko, you get to Dr. Kress Wessling, you get to all the, you get to some of those readings, or you get to the speeches from Dr. Henry Clark, Dr. Amos Wilson. Remember Ani, you need to get that Yorugu book from Remember Ani. And the reason why you want to understand other people is because you want to understand how to deal with them, since you're in a society where you're engaging with them. Mm-hmm. And since their energy is overriding the African vibration, simply because you are allowing them access, because you could actually close off access and then no one can get to you. Because no one can get to me. But you learn to cloak your information. You get to cloak your frequency so that you don't allow things to come into your space, even from other African people. But you need to understand that, because it's a faculty, it's a function that you need to have for cloaking your spiritual energy so you keep yourself healthy and safe, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't, because I want people to understand where the information is. I don't criticize Christian journey. And I talk, I have jokes. I got my Elder Kyle out there. He stay going in hard for Christian folks, and he want them to wake up, because at the end of the day, we need critical mass. We need people. I'm not begging for nobody, because me and Hassan, we can literally just, and we can be off the map, and we can go do whatever we want to do. We don't have to be bothered with this. It's not necessary.
There were so many instances in our life together that we could have just checked the
just
fuck
been
out.
Like, we tried it with our wedding, creating village, and we said, like, we do this. This is what we do, because we need critical mass. In order for there to be an impactful change, and since we have a gift that actually works, we choose to make ourselves available. Our ancestors have designated necessity. We can't get away from it. And even if we did go where we was going, we would be doing this still, because it is our duty to do it. Because there is not enough truth in the space, right? Our people get trapped in these spaces, and they end up in these spaces and hubs where they get exploited, because we got people who secretly want a better seat the master's house. They're not really trying to create sovereignty for the African, but a lot of them don't even know what it takes to create sovereignty for the African. Really? Most of them only believe that they can only find freedom and peace and goodness inside of this madness of stolen goods. There's blood in this soil. Our indigenous and the Africans are in this soil all through these rivers. Why do you want a piece of this? This is cursed.
It's terrible.
Why would you want a piece of this?
There's blood in this land. There's blood in this soil.
Why? You want to honor our ancestors? Take your ass home. Our ancestors were trying to get home.
They were trying to figure it out.
They stayed here to make do after they lost their was beat out of them.
They lost their language.
They couldn't find. They didn't know where they was coming from.
And then when you have generations coming out of that, those generations don't know.
10 generations, we don't know. My great grandmother, she's the only one who knew something. And now, before her, I don't know nothing. Before my great-grandmother, I don't know anything. I don't know who my great-great-grandmother was before her. I don't know if she had any siblings. That's it. And if you think I'm going to sit here and hold any guilt or sensitivities around anybody who got any conversation about my sovereignty, you got me mistaken. And I need African people to be real resolute around that. Because nobody should be asking you to choose.
Mm.
No one should be, and if they are, they're trying to deceive you, beguile you, manipulate you. No one should be asking you to choose. Self-preservation is the first rule of nature, period, for every organism. Every organism wants to live.
If anyone's asking you to make a choice over your sovereignty or your liberation, and they're an enemy. Period.
Period.
No one should be
Bottom
fighting with
line.
your freedom or your peace.
I don't care about your. Don't keep your smiling faces. I don't care about them. It's not. I'm not. It doesn't. It has no effect on me because what you're doing in your life, you are not addressing 8 minutes and 46 seconds with your life function.
Mm.
I want you to address Breonna Taylor with your life function.
Watch you still.
Elijah McClain with your life function.
Come on, man.
I don't need you to serve me with lip service. I got enough African people out here talking with lip service. African after 46, what you need to do is make sure every decision you make will benefit the next 3 generations. Everything you do needs to benefit the next 3 generations. You learning? Take it as learning. I tell my students, you don't go to college to learn, to become educated. You go to college, you go to the nation, you go to your Christian church, you go to your Buddhist temple to learn how to conduct your spiritual energy. You learn how to gain access to your higher self. You have a goal and objective when you go there.
Tap into you.
If it makes you disabled and codependent, it's not a faculty you can use because you need to have your hands strong and be able to utilize them. You need to have the educational system in America does not teach African people. It does not teach people in general to think. You need to learn. Dr. Malemo Baruti says, Baba, you need to know how to be trained to think. You need to learn because we're not trained to think. We do not get training on how to think here. We get training on how to regurgitate European science designated this one. And that's what the most of us do. And we lack the ability to critically think between the lines.
You have to trust what feels right in your spirit, not just trust what you feel makes it easier to live within the matrix. That doesn't work. Like a lot of in schooling, I went through schooling. Since you touched on, I was I went through schooling just like I need to get out of it. There's a process that's just by nature of just what I guess needs to be done is what I've been told to do. Without having a full grasp of the conversation yet as a young person, I was like, clearly this is something I have to do to get to whatever the fuck. So let me just finish this shit out. But it was not like a fun time other than my relationships with people.
That's it.
The fun I had with friends and learning from other people. But the moment I got out, that's where the real learning experiences began. And the more I got to learn and understand people and being in certain spaces and understanding, breaking down the bits and pieces of various religions, like Catholicism and Christian and non-Buddhism and just the pieces of what it means to be a better human being. In relation to other human beings.
Better African human being, not just a better human being. I clarified that.
Absolutely.
Be a better African.
And even that part is learning is about being in the spaces with the right people that fortify your energy.
That's right.
And when it comes to I like that information. I like the way this makes me feel. I feel more empowered since I left this space. I want to keep coming back to that space because I feel empowered for myself. Not for myself and validation of some outside source, being the matrix, being a boss, being a teacher or whoever, but for yourself. That's where that's the spaces you should call home.
Fortify
that's the spaces you should be in. Period.
Fortify you, African. You finished?
Yes.
Period.
Period.
Listen, African, that's work.
Do work.
Fortifying yourself is work.
Do the work.
But you know what? We've also been cultivated. We've also been cultivated into laziness.
I'll say it because people.
They said Africans was lazy ever since they started working for free.
Yeah, but now we really finish your point.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying because you said lazy, just remind me. There's these conversations we have that's so lazy right now. We dealing with the media, right? We just accepted everything. We just accept something somebody says about this person or this or that person or that leader or that celeb or that whatever the case or that brother, they just throw notes around. They just throw shit around to get views. Views go up for the lazy brain folks that engage it. You have to think critically, African, about who's controlling the narratives, who's the propaganda going against us, telling us about ourselves. I keep saying that. That's become so critical in my conversation around how we look at each other. Because we should know by now how the American media operates. And it's never in favor of us.
Brother Arik said he went from Christian to Sunni
Yeah, I was
Islam,
bringing
and
it up
then
earlier.
he then became he was drawn into the Nation of Islam from the Message of Black Men in America. Yeah, Message of Black Man, and then also Ben Ami is God, the Black Man and Truth for the Hebrew Israelites.
Family.
God, the Black Man and Truth. You gotta read.
That's the book for me. That was the book that, where, like I said, growing up in my teenage, and even from young, I had a conversation that was kind of like just how I would have conversations with my uncle who was a 5%er. Like, I would have these conversations just growing up around my blackness. I was the only dark-skinned person in my family, right? My immediate family, right? I grew up on my mother's side. And so I constantly having a conversation with my blackness and what that means to the world landscape, right? And bit by bit, whatever information I could pull out of the system that made sense to me, that's where it worked. But it was always like, how can I put the cap on it of understanding? Maybe not the cap, but like the real tie-in, the real catalyst point. And God, the Black Man Truth by Ben Ami was that catalyst point for me. That book was it. So if you have not read that book, please pick up that book.
And they got this book online. Somebody over here on A Books is selling the book for $110.
Oh, you
this
tripping.
Book is about $15, if not that. I actually
and see that's that right there. That's
doing too much. $118.33.
Oh, you want this knowledge, people? Then you have to pay this price for me.
This book is I bought this book inside the bookstore. There was a bookstore inside. It's $15 on Amazon. But it was $10, I think, or $12 at the bookstore. $8.79, I believe. Ralph David Abernathy and East
how's the paperback more than the hardcover?
In the West End. Yeah, they did this to my books, the same thing with my books. They this book, God, the Black Man and Truth, I bought it from the Israelite community out there in Atlanta. When I was out there in that community. I believe it's on Ralph David Abernathy in the West End. And I just put it in the group. And I'm putting so these are the gateway books. These are the books that open up your eyesight and give you a narrative, but it also gives you you also sourcing frequency. So it also talks about in that section of mental side about energy. You know, I'm a strong proponent that if you're going to live this life, if you're going to talk this life, you need to live this life.
Period.
I am so tired of seeing people who are rhetorician and who are not living this life. They turned this thing into the same thing they did with gospel music. After they did a rap music, they made it contemporary gospel. Then they had gospel rappers and they had people doing the same street dances to gospel music. They've done the same thing with consciousness. They turned consciousness. Now it's supposed to be some of it is on the academic circuit of education. And then some of it is on this whole like rap set tripping and all of this here foolishness where you get to agitate folks' low vibration. And you're dealing with a demographic of people who are not necessarily, they're on the fringes of our society as already because they were either run out of school, they were rejected in their space, they didn't succeed in the traditional methods of succeeding, find value in the matrix. So they choose to make their own spaces, either they're unemployed, they're hustlers, or whatever the case may be. But these are the individuals who are now in this space. Not that they're lack of intelligence or they're not smart, is that they weren't matrix smart. They didn't make the matrix cut. So now, but they also are now, because of that, they're underdeveloped because there's still a faculty that happens when you go to college. There's still certain things that does happen with you learning to socialize yourself as an adult in this matrix. That doesn't happen for some people in the hood because that journey was cut short. Right. And these are the same people that find themselves in spaces and places where they're now writing books or they're in the front of the room or they're doing these other things and they don't have these sensitivities. They're lacking the soft skills is what they say in, my other world of learning and development, African and workforce development. They're lacking the soft skills. So you got people who have the learning ability who are manipulating them and engaging them in low vibration frequencies and turf wars and all of that stuff to keep them excited. Because that's the kind of stuff, keep creating drama and keeping things hot and all of this wild and crazy and savagery and wild energy to try to be that source, to be that place where people can expel energy. In AfriKAN, your energy matters. So the well you drink from will affect the product that you're drinking. Okay? Where you pick your fruit matters. The orchard you pick your fruit matters because you know who cared for that orchard. You know what was necessary for that orchard. If the orchard you use is subpar, and they use chemicals, it's going to be affected by what you take in. And energy matters.
Absolutely.
So family, let's be wise. And I always encourage you, don't look for a leader, become the leader. Go to school. Learn, take in the education. Get the knowledge. You can put the knowledge on yourself. You don't need an example. It's no real way. Just going out there and do it. Figure it out yourself. You are better off that way than spending 40 years, like 50 years, like my grandmother did, in this church, giving her little $2, a coin to this church. And at the end of the day, that's the end of that. You die, you're done. You die, you're done. Family didn't even come to the funeral. 40 years in this church. That's how they respect you. African people, we know what Black African lives matter, but we don't treat each other like African lives matter. You know how many times folks let me know that that I didn't matter to them? Just was like, oh, you don't matter. I ain't got to understand you.
Yeah.
Rude. This is what we do. And we in the community.
And that's either
be careful.
That either looks like they don't want to show up for you, or it looks like they think they don't value your time, so they think they can throw everything into your face.
Yeah.
And just do you oh, you're not busy, you're not doing anything right now.
Yeah.
It's 2 a.m. It's 3:47 in the afternoon. Do this right now. Hey, check this out. Do this. That's not valuing your time. It does mean that's not respecting of who you are. And we deal with that, African, but we got to keep moving. We got to keep moving.
We are going to keep moving regardless. But these are the things that deter the family from getting engaged. Absolutely. This is why we got to keep that echo out there. That message just stays out there. As it regards to propaganda in the media, as it distorts our African images. Yes.
I'm talking about the media point earlier. Yeah, absolutely, Brother Kyle. Yeah, it's we gotta stay protected around who's telling us what. We gotta stay with the direct source, which is our people. If they ain't say it, then they ain't do it. You know what I mean? I mean, be critical is what I'm saying though. Be critical of who's saying what about who, and especially when it comes to us. Go to us first. Go to your people first. Well, why? Well, what's that about? Question everything. But we have to have a critical eye. We gotta have a standard.
We have to have a standard of acceptable. We cannot just be allowing folks to just like willy-nilly through this thing. In the African context, there is a rites of passage that you have to go through that designate you've paid into the dues, and that you have been willing to make the necessary self-sacrificial behaviors and actions that demonstrate that you put others before yourself. You would put others' safety before your own. Absolutely. You would put others' comfort before your own. We are dealing with a whole breed of people who think they can have their cake and eat it too. That's not how this thing goes. You don't receive honor. Respect is due a dog. African people, you got to respect me. No. You respect everyone. Respect
yourself first.
Honor? Then you got to do something to be honored. Okay? You have to do something to be honored. I respect everybody, but I don't honor everybody. Okay? So let's get that clear. And our people don't know the difference, so we got to do something about this.
We got to do the learning around it. Like I said, do the work. And I just want to say, to our brothers, we got to do the work to stand with each other. Just as more than ever is the time that we got to stand with each other as brothers, and stand in protection of our women, of our family, of our youth, because it's getting real crazy out here. We lost, there's so many shootings that happened this week. They always talk about what's going on in Chicago and things like that, and our brothers out here, our young brothers out here, just taking each other's lives or just shooting up places of violence, and shooting is the answer for dealing with each other. We lost 2 rappers in the past week, 2 young rappers, not even over 30 yet, got killed over nothing. Rapper guy, King Von, got killed in front of a club, shot by some peoples, shot by some Warren gang, whatever, some Warren enemies, whatever you want to say. Another rapper, I think singer, whatever, he was shot in Texas. Just pulled over and shot on the side of the street, killed. Lil Boozy, he got shot the other day in the leg by somebody. Another rapper, Benny the Butcher, he just got shot the other day. Mostly in Texas, and shot the other day in the leg for a robbery attempt. Pop Smoke, we lost at the top of the year. Like, this is getting too much, people.
These are young men.
There's young men that we're losing. These young men that are having bright futures that we're losing. Pop Smoke had a very extremely bright future. This brother King Von, for what I'm hearing, he had a bright future. He's a young storyteller. You know, his other brother, Big Mo, I don't know, you know, what he
But
we gotta
get out of the we gotta
he's
get out
gone.
of the
He
matrix.
can't do what he needs to do.
We gotta get out of the matrix. We gotta stop our people from believing that this matrix is the only way to make it.
It's not.
We have to compartmentalize our engagement with the matrix. We got to let our people know that you don't park in the matrix. Lil Wayne should have been got out the game. You stick and move. You hit a lick and you move on. Because the longer you stay, overexposure will saturate your brain and you will turn to mush. You need to get your mind while you still have it.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is what they say, what profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul. This is a Christian theory. Similar to African theory, same thing. Right? All this is coming off the same tree. Okay? So you want to really be clear what your intentions are.
Yeah.
You're trying to get wellness. You're trying to get your whole, you know, I'm looking fly. I got people looking at me. I'm getting my platform. People looking at me, giving me all of this attention and their energy. What value are you giving? You're a Lil Wayne in the world. What are you doing? You're a Lil Wayne in the world. Okay, he gave to some colleges, or maybe he gave to somebody over there. He gave to somebody over there. What? So what?
Right. So your strongest.
You just perpetuated more madness in the matrix.
Right. Your strongest asset that you've brought to the industry or into the world is not being utilized in that way. What good is the backhand stuff if it's not like if you're not actually living the life and putting the energy out there in a real way? More people are consuming your music than there are the people that's like, oh, thanks for this little scholarship or have. And let me not diminish the act. Yes, it's a nice act, but the bigger impact you had it through your music. And that's what I say with these like artists, like the impact is through your music as well. Let it all be in succinct work together to fortify our community because we don't have any time for anything else. We don't have any time for this other bullshit that happens. I'm not one that's like just accepting the good enough. While this rapper talks about gun toting and killing and sex and dicks and all this other stuff. But they gave it to their local school that they grew up in. That's cute.
That's such a mess.
But that's a cop out. That's a cop out. For that idea of philanthropy is top surface cop out. Here's a check.
Elder Cal
I did my good deed.
It's a little too late for Lil Wayne. Yeah, it is too late for Lil Wayne. He stayed in too long. That's the point.
Yeah, he said.
The point is he stayed in too long. He stayed in.
He had a really high point. There was a point where I was a fan of him, and he had a really high point.
It's not impossible. I still believe that as long as there's life within us, that I wouldn't personally spend no time unless he was paying me. I wouldn't. I don't have the time. I need for whatever I do to benefit 3 generations forward. Yeah. And if I'm going to be your personal guide, I can help you. I can work on a Lil Wayne and get him back. But I don't know, right? I wouldn't be willing to put all my intention into dealing with him. You know what I'm saying? Folks. There's so many other people out here who have their hands, and we really need to work on these adults. This is my particular gift. I work on adults. Right, we got segments of us that work on children. I work on adults because the children have to come into a safe space, and we need to create some healthy adults because the adults are just making them mad again. You help fix them from little, then you grow them up, and they go into these spaces and they get into these mixed up spaces again. You got scholars who have mixed loyalties, African scholars who have mixed loyalties. They get this platform, they get some books, they get on the speaking circuit, and you know what? They become hollowed out. Because they got used to eating good. You got to read that high treason and that mental side. Get into that. Don't get into that. Right? Absolutely. And it's going to be really important for you to be able to tell because we should be able to check each other. Friends don't let friends do dumb shit. You should be able to check an African and say, so I'm thinking that, you might want to dial that back a little bit. Right? I'm saying. Grandma taught me real young. See, I learned some things. We're going to have a conversation about that later, but I learned some things. Grandma said, say no thank you sometimes. Because all food ain't good food. You don't know you don't know how the people keep house. You don't know if they wash their hands. You don't know if they clean their meat. Say no thank you sometimes. So see, I learned early on how to let certain things go right by me. And I don't salivate. I don't have to because some people get like that. And especially when they feel like this is their only possibility. This is their only opportunity. Right. And let me tell you, the Matrix made that pressure cooker like that on purpose. They created that temperature on purpose. So that they can get people who will sell out every single time.
Trust and believe.
There's always a sellout available.
Absolutely. A no, trust and believe, a no can be a yes for yourself, and it's also a complete sentence. So use it wisely and use it abundantly where you can for self-preservation, because that is key. So this is Soundbytes International Radio,
Yes,
y'all.
family.
You already know how we do it on Monday night. It's a couple things.
So
I'm gonna share a couple things that we got coming up. We got coming up. People that we support. Tomorrow, I wanted to share this specifically. Tomorrow there is a mass meeting, a mass call. Shouts out to Black Men Build. Black Men Build is a platform built this year that's really been about fortifying the connection and the brotherhood and the reprogramming for Black men. In America, in the society, in response to everything that's been taking place. The Black Men Build has been doing their thing. Shouts out to them. They're having a Black Men Build mass meeting. There's 6 mass meetings. That's all right there in the flyer. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a mass meeting. As it says, the campaigns have left. The phone calls and texts are gone, but we are still here. We still got bills and responsibilities and still got to live and raise our families. We all we got and we all we need. Period. So for all the Black men and all the brothers out there that want to get in tune and tap in with other brothers on this call, you can RSVP at bit.ly/BMB mass calls. That's bit.ly/BMB mass calls. You can RSVP there, and it's going to be just of course like a virtual call with some powerful brothers, and an opportunity to build and connect nationally. It's a national group. So tap in, family, tap in, and let's get into that. Other things you want to talk about Kabuka?
Yeah, so Kabuka is our with Dr. Malemu Baruti. He's going to be hosting the Kabuka event, and it's our it's not a rites of passage. It's our Ma'afa remembrance, and Kabuka means to remember, and we give honor to our ancestors through the Ma'afa, the African Holocaust. We go through a series of traditions and sharing and lecture and ceremony just to engage the space with our energy and intention.
Right.
Our energy and intention. That's big on African Front. The African Front is about the energy and the intention. So get into Kabuka. You can register. The information is put up for you. You can register there. And it's $20 for the family. It's an online event. So please attend. You're in a safe space. Share the event with others. Dr. Malemu Baruti is an insanely incredible academic. And his energy, like I said, the tree that you get your fruit from matters. The tree matters. The fruit that you get from your tree matters. So it's intention that you get it from a place where you're going to be sourced well. And so that you know that, excuse me. So I'm getting a check-in right now from the Sun. We're live on Soundbytes, Isaiah. Call me back in 20 minutes.
It's Monday.
So it's Monday. He should be online getting the fruit. He should be online getting the fruit from the tree. So we're gonna stop talking. I'm live. So yes, Kabuka family. Kabuka, register $20 for the family. Live event November 21st. From 5 to 9 p.m. in the sanctity, sacredness of your home, bring in the family, pay the $20 energy exchange. And like I said, Dr. Malemu Baruti is an insanely incredible teacher, source of energy, and he gives great value for the meager cost of $20.
Absolutely, that's sure. So yes, it's Soundbytes International Radio.
We're gonna have one Chief Fode and from Basani, guys. They were online a couple of weeks ago. They talked about the Be Clean effort, and they also have a collective called the Exodus movement, and that is supporting Africans with repatriating to the continent.
Yes.
There's a whole system of services, a whole support agency, social services on the ground agency that supports you in building your business, relocating, visa support, getting connected to the community on the ground, and doing that spiritual repatriation segment as well. So you'll receive support, and these services span the African diaspora across the African continent. They have several countries that they're working with in terms of repatriating African people. So get into that. That's going to be this Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time
for African in Business. Absolutely. And we'll be talking to Basani, a Black
Black Star
Action Network International Family, and where they'll be talking about the Exodus movement as well. So we'll see you for that.
Absolutely. So we thank you for joining us, family. Shout out to our brother Arik once again, brother Kyle. Thank you everybody that tuned in this evening. The Soundbytes International Radio, Black Conscious Acclaim, One World is the aim. You already know how we do. Again, just as a cleanup, remember to follow us right here on Facebook at Soundbytes INTL Radio. Follow us and like us on Facebook. You already know what to do. Get that to it. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at Soundbytes INTL. You can also follow us. I didn't even say this before. Soundbytes on Instagram at Soundbytes International Radio. All together, Soundbytes International Radio on Instagram, where you can see more of these conversations in actual Soundbytes in depth. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Soundbytes International Radio. Please hit that subscribe button right there, and also make sure you share with your family and friends to subscribe as well. Let's get the subscribers up. We really want to get the subscribers up and to increase the influence, increase the support around the conversation.
We need we need the maximum capacity.
Absolutely. Also, remember you can follow our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Soundbytes International Radio. You can go search Soundbytes International Radio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can visit the website link, which is scrolling across. This is soundbytes.com, where you can go right on that main page and click and add the Soundbytes International Radio on your podcast lists right up in there. So remember also to get that Feel Me EP from Nephara Tumati Rod Nephara.
Get into it.
Get that Queen Deferred Feel Me EP is available now on Keys to Soar, KEYS2SOAR.com /Feel Me EP. So you can go right there to download it now. You can also, stream on the streaming services and, subscribe on YouTube, what have you. Let's build it up.
Get into it, family.
Get into it, family. You already know
that sound therapy is the truth out there.
Absolutely,
so there's great reviews on it. Very much
appreciate everybody that reviewed and supported.
Oh,
it's powerful.
It's
a real meditative state. So we encourage you to support that and download that today. Purchase that and download it today. So one love, family. Soundbytes National Radio, Black Conscious Acclaim.
One world is the aim.
Once again and again and again.
We do. Just keep drilling it in. Anything you practice, you get good at.
Absolutely. So we're gonna close out as we do. Get the energy high, and stick with us, y'all. One love.
The face of the earth with
know what time it is.
Get your I am on.
I tell them I am. They tell me that's a cute affirmation, but it's not an answer. I reply, listen again. My affirmation is your answer. It's the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Yeah, the proof in the hi-hat. Internal reflection, I digress. I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. $1 million dreams, yeah, I manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1 million dreams, yeah, I manifest it. Anything I want, yeah, turn. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am.
Greatness.
None of the truth can deny the power of I am. Handsome chocolate mofo, yo. Anytime I'm on GoPro, literal high home, bro. This is what found around so low. So I picture fast, picture slow. To the cows call home, bro. It didn't make sense. I was told as a child I would be shit. Revenge on my mother, start flipping the script. They fed me lies, started creeping that shit. They treated me different, I embraced that shit.
You know the ones that be closest to you, be the family ties, sacred bonds.
Murder,
dirty.
Service blew the cuz,
hey, but bet I believe in me 1,000%.
Sitting here to get, and I couldn't resist. Killing these niggas with their toxicness without a pocket pistol.
Monotonous.
Told myself I couldn't rock with this. Hating with goofies couldn't get me rich. True blood suckers couldn't see bliss, couldn't see shit.
Gold face, nigga, dead wrong. Regurgitating, percolating, singing that same song. I'm breast all day long.
All day long. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Nigga,
I am. Some people might say I'm washed.
Well, they're absolutely right.
I am washed.
I said washed, cleansed,
and purified of the nonsense they tried to attest to my context.
I am resilient.
I am more than
a survivor.
I am a thriver.
Come
on, African, get some.
Yes. Look at the strength that I have.
Strength.
None of the truth can deny that.
Yeah, the proof in the hi-hat.
Internal reflection, I digress.
You love me more, never love less.
I love me more, never love less.
$1 million dreams, yeah, I manifest it.
Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1 million dreams, yeah,
I manifest it. Anything you want, get done. This is the power of I am.
Magic beans.
greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth could deny the
Power of I am. Hey,
I'm in no place to waste my time. Focus my goal to shift paradigms. My get up and go to keep my folks on time. So I'm in the road with a goal to refine. Yeah, I know what I mean. Vision. Perspective from every day, go to a clean prison. Doesn't matter if I didn't check the color of green. When I lost my mother, found peace inside my queen, and I laid it in my brother's Bars was shaping up the grand scheme. I don't wrestle to the mat on my champion. In a matter of time, I became a champion. No way when I'm just a damn thing. So my aims to pack up the arena. Future leaders with every line of the levers. The gods and unbelievers do what they can conceive us. Know what we do and leave us. Brick to never see us.
woo! God, I'm feeling good, motherfucker. What they say, I'm doing what they never would.
Get a grasp on your life, yeah. Payment sacrificial prices. Go to your joint, playing nice, yeah. They go to recognize who the nice is.
From the north to the southeast. Hey, that's fly, y'all. Everything you want, yeah, turn out.
Man, I ain't talking in terms about which I want to or even I will anymore.
You say.
Only things I proclaim, I do. I have and I am. I do as my ancestors instruct. I have all I need to affect change.
And I am a living magnification of.
This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Yeah, the proof in the high hat. Internal reflection, I digress.
I love me more, never love less.
I love me more, never love less. Turn up.
$1 million dreams, yeah, I manifest it.
Look deep inside, yeah.
You be the blessing.
$1 million dreams, yeah.
I manifest it.
Anything I want,
Yeah, turn up.
This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the
Power of I am.
A lot of power, family. One love.
So
Soundbytes
awesome.
International Radio. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Mr. Nefla. This is Nefla
Family.
So join us this Wednesday, African in Business.
You
We
know
out
it.
here, family. You already know how it go.
Keep it
One love, have a
tight.
blessed one, family. Peace.
Peace.